Good morning, buddy.
Morning. Cheers, dude.
I honestly have been waiting to connect with you for years because I've been biking around Southern California. I moved out here 2011, probably got my first bike maybe 2013. And I have been riding around here, and probably for at least I started noticing your name 6-7 years ago everywhere I went. And
I have a good body of work around here.
yeah, dude, you got to be the fittest rider in Southern California, if not the United States, if not the entire world when it comes to hill climbing, which is insane to think about because as a cyclist, I know there's people who do triathlon, there's people that do tours, crits, all that kind of stuff. At least in this body of cycling, I think most people out here care about like your times to the top of Latigo Canyon, Stunt Road, whatever it is, and you're the guy. Like, I mean, did you know that when you got into cycling, or did you develop that over years and years and years? Because this is amazing to me.
I mean, like I was good at racing. It's so funny because like the whole Strava thing was like a total afterlife that took place kind of as a gag after I got shit out of the world tour in racing. There's like a lot of guys who are better than me, but they're in France. They're doing like these competitive races against the 130 dudes who are in that pool. And I was in that for a few years and kind of came out at 30. And that was kind of when Strava was, it already existed, but it sort of took off then. So it was like a little bit right place, right time. And I put myself on there. And now instead of competing with the best guys in the world, I'm up against a bunch of dentists who are uploading their rides to this app.
But don't be like that, dude. Like even I was talking to you yesterday. I mean, we're going to get nerdy. We know people in this small group, but like Ben Bostrom is this guy, MotoGP guy, and he's a mutant. That guy is a mutant. I know he's more of a trail dude, but there's so many people out here. I know the Tour de France guys would ride out here. Chris McCormack used to ride out here.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever meet Jonathan Toker by any chance? The guy who founded Salt Stick?
No.
He lives here on Latigo Canyon. Latigo Canyon is just packed full of slayers. You got myself, you got John Toker, Ben Bostrom, Laird Hamilton.
Yeah, I was gonna say, when does Laird come up?
Yeah, dude. There's just so many. I used to watch Laird going up and down the hill on his elliptico with a weight vest on.
Yeah. No, it's funny.
Like
someone, like when I first moved here, like LA is just such a weird place. I first moved here, like my agent told me, like, oh yeah, Laird Hamilton lives on Latigo, and I was riding up Latigo, and I was like, I wonder which house that guy Laird. And then I just saw him, like, I just saw this like beautiful. He looked like he was 7 feet tall. Maybe he was just like shirtless, tan, and I was like, oh, I guess that's the house.
Yeah, dude. During the fires in 2018. Yeah, he's iconic. During the fires in 2018, I came down because I live up on top of the hill. I came down to like the halfway point for a bit for a vantage point, and he's just down there in a fire jacket with a turtleneck on, hosing, and everything was in slow motion. I was like, "What the hell is this, man?" I was like, "How do you make a fire look cool?" But this is an incredible canyon, great people. I mean, dude, I have so many curiosities. Like I started my running career and it has evolved so much. When I originally got started, I was doing things like road racing. Then we got into Spartan racing, Tough Mudder, CrossFit Games. Now I do something called High Rocks. Mm-hmm. When you got into sports, you know, did you just know you're like, the bike's me, or did you start somewhere unique? Like you were like a field hockey player, and then all of a sudden you were like, I'm going to cross train on a bike, and that's when you became a mutant?
No, I think honestly, like cycling was the first thing I was ever good at athletically at all. Like I played soccer when I was a kid. I was kind of like a chubby kid. And then like got into bikes, just like riding around. I grew up in Atlanta, just like I didn't have a car when I was 16. So just like riding around town with my buddies. And then I went to University of Florida for college, and I was like, well, I like bikes. I'll join the cycling team. I didn't even realize that like cycling team meant racing. I just thought it was like a club where you ride bikes together. But I realized it was like the skinny tires, and I didn't even have that kind of bike yet.
Get a Huffy.
I went there and like, you know, just to meet people and make friends. I joined the club, and like 4 or 5 months into it, I was kind of like winning the collegiate races, and it kind of took off from there.
And in college, I guess, like what's the name of that really with Kevin Costner, that bike movie?
Oh,
Flyers or something?
American Flyers is one. Yeah.
Yeah, was that like kind of your thing? Like you guys were like back in the day, was that kind of like your motivation when you saw that, or
I
did you
haven't
even
seen that one.
know?
Breaking Away was I guess the one that I would have seen, but no, it wasn't. I guess back then it was like watching Lance Armstrong at the tour
Yeah,
before we knew what his deal was.
I've never
That was the
seen Breakaway.
inspiration.
So, I mean, I guess since biking wasn't so sexy, like for me, it was even a very difficult thing. I left college and I was like, I'm going to become a professional runner. They're like, are you going to go to the Olympics? And I was like, no, I'm not going to make it to the Olympics. I'm going to try this thing called Spartan racing. I don't even know. I guess you're around the same age as me. Cycling was in the Olympics at the time because cycling started to get into the Olympics. Like, did you have big goals like that, or are you just like, I'm gonna get on a bicycle and I'm gonna figure this shit out, and anybody who will like have me come to an event, I'm in?
Yeah, I think early on it was like there was a big scene back then that's like kind of fizzled away now, but like just smaller races, the just basically all over the southeast and all over the country. There was just like a little race every weekend that you could go and win prize money. There was a scene of professional racing in the US that was pretty solid at the time, that just like, you know, your pros, but like the better guys were making six figures and traveling around. That was kind of my aspiration for a little bit, and then it really, like, it was a mistake, but on my part, it was like one tier at a time was always my goal. Like, however, I was a Cat 4, like I just want to be a Cat 3. I never thought like, oh, I want to win the Tour de France. Uh, I it was the next step each time, which I think long term I didn't really plan my career out as well as I could have. I wasn't aimed or targeted. Like, it sounds like you were sort of similar, just like, oh, I'll try this, I'll try that. When, you know, if at 16 you're like, this is where I want to be and these are the steps to get there.
Yeah.
You know, I probably would have raced the Tour de France, but
I mean, I watched some of your YouTube episodes and I've watched them before, and like you kind of talk about how you were talking about this guy who was the Harvard rower, and it was the video I added in there, and you're like, man, you'd have to sleep on couches like me and kind of scramble around. Like, with you stepping out of college and going into professional cycling, like, was there very much like a ladder being like, hey, you got to climb this ladder if you want to get to the tour? Like, were you doing things like like the Georgia tour? Were you doing the Tour de California? Or is it just one of these kind of things where it's like, there's pro cycling and then there's a whole nother level which you need to rocket ship to, which is the European tour? Like, were you somewhere between that gap, or were you basically in the bubble of like the highest level immediately?
It's kind of both. The American scene, and so I did the Tour of California 8 times. And
Did you do? You obviously did Mount Baldy.
Oh yeah.
Did you crush? Did you win that?
No, I never won a stage at Cali. The Europeans would come over for California every year, and then like the handful of the best guys who were racing in the U.S. circuit could compete against them, and we get our butts kicked. So I was always like one of the American guys who got over there. And then like towards when I was 26, I got signed to a World Tour team. So I did the Europe thing for a couple of years. But that was, I think by the time I got over there, it was like a little bit too late. Like, I was kind of too old to adapt to that. The races in the US were shorter. It's kind of nerdy, but I just like wasn't trained for what they had going on over there. And then there was like some politics. The dopers didn't like me. Well, I didn't like them first.
Talking a lot of shit.
But yeah, it was weird times then. It was like when I first came up, it was the Armstrong era. And then kind of when I got to be pro was when people realized that he was doping, or he admitted he was doping. And at that point, like, all the sponsors in the US went away. So like teams that, you know, used to be on like $4 million budgets and guys making six figures, like by the time I got there, I was making like $12,000 a year. But the sleeping on couches era, like like the whole bottom fell out of that sport. And I mean, that happened in Europe too, but it was sharp here. So that was, rough years.
So when you ended up in that position, did you, I mean, like, it seems like you cut your pro career pretty short. Was it a financial thing? Was it a lifestyle thing? Or like, you know, you seem to have such insane talent. Like, you know, we'll go over your your record in a second here, but like you're a mutant, dude. Like, I guess just out of curiosity, somebody's already asked, like, what was your FTP? Because I put up that header image of you having the 5.8 watts for 50 minutes. For me, in equivalence, that'd be 522 watts for 50 minutes.
It helps not being able to do any pull-ups in the power to weight ratio. I could do 400 watts for an hour, like during my racing era. That was kind of, I guess that'd be the FTP. Nowadays it's like 385. I'm still fighting it.
That's fucking crazy for an hour, because that's around my score for 20 minutes.
Yeah, but also, I can't run. I can't do any pull-ups. That's when you stick to one sport, you can do a lot.
You're not a great runner. I feel like you'd just be able to put a pair of shoes on and just literally run like a 220 marathon.
I'm okay. I've never tried. I'm okay. I run with the dog, but my time wouldn't impress you.
I feel like you just would be, if I literally put you in a triathlon or anything, I feel like you just crush.
I think give me a few months, I could be a decent runner. There's no way with the swimming. There's too much technique. That'd be a lot of education.
I guess just to keep on giving some length to this so people can fully understand what you do before we get into like the nerdy part, which is like training and lifestyle and eating. So you do some European tour stuff. You're here in the United States, tour to California. Like, clearly these are some pretty substantial races, and they're very, very enduring and hard races. When did you find out that you were like, God's gift to earth when it came to going up?
I think like when I was coming up, like my specialty was always climbing. And the way I figured out was that was where I got dropped last when I was like 22. Like you're doing the big races, and like, okay, the sprints, I'm way at the back, the time trials, I'm kind of in the middle. And then when it goes uphill, like, oh, I'm with the best 10 guys, that was how I figured it out. And then as I got older, I progressed at it. But the races every race that I won was like a mountaintop finish that was like 5 to 30 minutes of climb at the end. So you figure it out pretty quick what you're good at. Because everyone else is going backwards.
So out of curiosity, because I think the people who are like, Tour de France is just so easy for us to talk about because everybody knows about that race. So like Alpe d'Huez, I guess, would be the one that's like probably the most iconic climb. Would that be it?
Yeah.
So if we were to put you there, just wash away everything else and just put that one segment as a climb, where like, do you stack up with these guys? Like, are you really going to get out there and like hold up with them and you're like top 5 in the pack?
It's funny you should ask. I think I'm gonna do that this summer. That's actually my plan for this summer. Is I'm doing a video series.
Great minds think alike.
Called Phil Wins the Tour de France. Yeah, it took me 8 years to think of this, and you 4 minutes in this video. But it's going to be Phil Wins the Tour de France, and I'm going to go and like just try to set times on the 4 most iconic climbs. So Alpe d'Huez, Galibier, Ventoux, and Tourmalet. I'm going to be there for 3 weeks and make a whole video series. And I win the Tour de France because I'm going to enjoy the wine, eat some snails, have some omelets, and bring my wife and have a good trip. But I'll set my best times on the climb. What I'm trying to evolve into as I'm 39 now is like using the fitness to show off like what cool stuff you can do on a bike. So, here's a beautiful day in Malibu that I get to enjoy because I'm healthy and I'm stopping at La Plage for, speaking of omelets, and they don't have snails, but it's this little French cafe in Malibu. So it's kind of that. So I'm going to bring that to France and kind of do that right.
So let's just continue this thing with, I guess, the tour. If you had to take yourself in your absolute peak, if you could put yourself into that kind of race, and everything was working out in your favor, what does it look like for the kind of style of training and racing that you are best at versus that? Like, if you're top 5 best climbers on these things, respectively, if you had to go through the whole tour, would you make it through it, or would you be one of the kind of guys that gets dropped back? Or is it that substantial of a difference?
Today, I don't think I'd finish the tour, but in my peak era, for sure, I was definitely like close enough. Like there's plenty of guys who finished the Tour de France who I was just as good as when I was 26, 27. Would I have like won the thing? Absolutely not. That's like freaks of freaks at that level. But like definitely I was at a level that was, I did races similar to that. yeah, that was for sure in my wheelhouse. I would have loved to do the tour once, but
So I think it kind of like, from what I've seen in the notes, you kind of pulled out of pro cycling early. Like, and one of the questions I had for you is like, if you could do your career all over again, knowing what you know now, like I'm 36 years old and I look back on my career and I'm like, would I have changed anything? Would I have done
yeah,
anything? Is there
that's tough
something where
enough.
you look back, you're like, man, I wish I just dumped the bike completely and went into triathlon, or you wish that you had spent more time in Europe developing kind of the bigger, like the grand tours, or would you become like a classic guy and go after Paris-Roubaix or something like that?
Yeah, no, for sure. If I'd planned out, that's kind of what I was talking about before. Like if I planned out my career a little bit better, if I knew what I was capable of when I was 19, I would have, taken the tracks and been like, okay, I want to try to go here and do the Europe thing. The thing was like, it was what got me out early, I think, was a combination of like, I was good, but I wasn't undeniably good. I wasn't like winning shit left and right good, but I was on the European teams. I was on teams that like did the Tour de France. But I wasn't selected, and that was politics. With A, I started a little bit too late, and B, like the doping thing, which like just it's hard to explain how in the doping era, like all those guys just got really entrenched. So the guys who were doing the drugs in the 90s were managing teams in the 2000s. So if you were known as like an anti-doper, they kind of weren't
Didn't want
rooting
you.
for you.
Yeah.
So it was hard to get a job. There's just like only a few teams that even would want to talk to me, or that I would even want to talk to. So at 30, I just kind of realized like, okay, the team that I was on, wasn't going to renew me. And the job next year would be like me being on a middle tier team racing the Tour of Azerbaijan for $40,000 a year. And it's probably time to move on. It's all, it's a dangerous sport. Someone dies in the World Tour every year or two, like in a race. And it's kind of like, okay, for where I'm at in my arc, I see what I'm capable of, and I see what the gatekeepers are. It's just like, it's time to move on and get a job. And I fell into this sponsored Strava YouTube thing in a wonderful way that kind of let me have out the length of career that I should have to begin with. Like I should still be racing if I wanted to. I should be retiring now.
Yeah.
Instead, I had to do it myself. So that's been
Do
cool.
you think like, so a lot of the guys that I raced against, when I was 24 to 28 were 10 years older than me. My mentor, the guy who like kind of got me into racing and like inspired me, this guy named Hobie Call, he went undefeated at the age of 39, won the world title, and went undefeated the following season, but just didn't get the world title at the age of 40. And there was another guy at the age of 40 and another guy at the age of 39 that got their world titles as well in our sport, which was a 3.5 hour long mountain race and Spartan race. Like they were freaks in their late 30s. Like, do you still feel like in your late 30s, you're like, man, I got it? Or you think that you're like, man, I'm noticeably different from when I was in my 20s or so?
I have it in a lot of ways still. Like I'm honestly like I'm still surprised at what my power output is, but like the thing with bikes, like it's measurable. I've got the power meter. I know it's just like it's 15 watts less than it was 10 years ago. That's not terrible for an hour. But
Yeah.
like kind of the repeated efforts, the sprints, the short things, like you're a race isn't just one, like Strava is one effort. A race is a million little efforts to there's 5 climbs on a stage, there's little sprints to come out of a corner, there's all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably what the sharp stuff is, I think, what you lose when you get older. I think the endurance stays longer, but I
Yeah.
think the short efforts are what goes away. So I think that would be ugly
Yeah.
these days. I think it's just different.
But maybe your intelligence has changed a little bit as far as the way you'd race. I
For
think
sure.
that's part of the reason. Yeah.
Yeah, you race savvier. I definitely like. I mean, I noticed that from age 29 to 21. Just like, oh, I know how to beat these dumb kids.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was one of those dumb guys. I was like, I'm
Yeah.
going to hit the gas pedal and I'm going to hold it. Every time I would get beat by them, I would hold the gas pedal down as hard as I could. And literally just at the finish line, they would like pass me. And I
Hmm.
was like, why? Why did I lead this entire thing and then just get absolutely crushed?
Yeah.
I guess out of curiosity, like if you were looking at your younger self compared to now, I guess, would you say that there's anything you wish that you had done differently in training now that you have this decade of like new information, the power meters, the VO2 max information, supplementation, like any of this kind of stuff? Because even like so much has changed in the whole sporting world where it seems like records are dropping all the time.
Totally.
And some of it's like carbon shoes, some of it's these bikes are lighter. Because there's something now, you're like, man, if I had that 10 years ago, like this would have been like this.
In bikes, like the equipment's crazy. So that's kind of a whole other conversation of just like everyone's ultimately on the same, different brands, but the same kind of technology. It'll advance. Like the bikes have gotten way more aerodynamic. It was all about like having a light bike in my era, and now it's like they're still light, but they're also like really slippery in the wind tunnels, stuff like that. I'd say like training wise, the thing that's changed most in the sport that I've noticed was like they're letting you eat carbs now. And it was funny, just like even in my era, I remember looking at like the Ironmen and they're just like eating gels and drinking sugar basically all day. And that was kind of what I always wanted to do. And when I did have that kind of nutrition, it worked well, but you're sort of at the mercy of, you're on these teams and they're the ones providing the food and they're, and I just, the science is up to someone else. They're just telling you what to do and handing it to you. But but now all the riders they're eating carbs. So like my era, there was this like fat burning metabolism. We were doing these fasted rides, which is so stupid. Like literally like they're just going out there and like riding for 6 hours with no food and just water. To improve your fat burning efficiency or some such. Like it was just bullshit. And it isn't that long ago. And now like riders are doing, I'm not even gonna know the numbers, but they're just like slamming sugar the entire Tour de France and you don't get fatigued. So they're just maintaining a higher power at the end. And it's nothing to do with like muscles. It's just like, they're not stronger. They're just fueling what we all had the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm eating that like that now, just on training rides. Just like, oh, that's funny. At hour 5, I'm just as good as hour 1. Back in the day, like no one was doing that.
I tried to crash diet last year. I was really romanticizing all these Tour de France books because I was trying to set a world record in our sport. And I was taking all this mathematical equations of like strength to weight ratio, getting into an altitude tent, increasing my VO2 max this much, dropping my weight this much, creating a less friction because of the amount of weight versus the power, all that kind of stuff. And I crashed completely. Like I completely overtrained, bonked everything. Like I was doing 3-hour bike rides on only amino acids and then black coffee at the end of it.
Right.
Like I was just like, I need to lose weight. I need to get leaner. I was reading through all the books and I was just like, I can do this. And boom, crashed out. And this whole season.
I don't know anyone who's had success like fighting their body weight. Like I just think that's just a bad way to go. Like to me, it's like find what part of the sport works for your body weight and your body type. Yep. Like I'm always going to be a climber. If I try to be a sprinter, it's just not going to happen. I could hit the gym for months and I'm still going to have these arms. And I think like the same with if you're a sprinter or if you have like a build like yours, you're just gonna be better at like shorter efforts, stuff like that. And pros, I never had any success with that. Like my weight was always my weight. And I think that was the same with most folks.
So I guess we'll get into the nerdy part of things because you've started to bring it up. Like you're 6'1", 150. I'm 6'2", and I range between 200 and 215. Like, have you always been a much leaner guy?
You were a chubby kid. Chubby to too skinny pretty quick. There was never any muscle on there. Yeah.
And were you ever messing around with it? Like you were like, man, this season I'm going to try to, I mean, you kind of just said, don't fight your weight, but do you ever be like, I'm going to try to go 155, 160, see if I can add horsepower? Do you ever try to go down to 140?
I did. I never tried to get, every time I tried to get skinnier, every time I like went under, because it's like I was saying in my era, like it's all power to weight and you just don't know what your weight should be. And every time I got below 148 pounds, I just got sick. So that was pretty quick. Like, all right, I'm not going to try and get any skinnier than that. Like 148 to 52 was where I won every race I won. Every time I tried to like train my sprint and get better at that, and build a little bit of muscle, it just didn't work. It was really clear that like that's just not going to be my direction. So I did a lot of criteriums for a few years, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna really work on my sprint this off season. I'm gonna improve, and it's like I'd go from 1200 watts to 1300 watts at my max, and neither of those is relevant where, you know, I need to be at 18 to have that conversation. It's like, yeah, we're not crossing that ocean. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I literally sit here with pads of paper. Like, dude, like I take out pads of paper like this, and I was like, okay, if my squat is this and my body weight goes from 205 to 195, I'll go from a power max of 1.3 to 1.41. And I get so nerdy with it. And like, are you the guy who's been doing all your training? Like I saw yesterday, you tagged something and you work with like Fast Cat Coaching. Is that your coach? Is your coaching business?
Yeah, it's a coach. I've been working with the same cycling coach since 2014, beginning of 2014. So yeah, he gives me, you know, here's the intervals, here's the workouts. I probably talk to him once a week.
And is it the kind of thing where you like, do you do any of your own training, or do you just get the script and you put it on, you put your meter on, you go?
It's a conversation. It's like, here's my goals. Here's what I'm like. He has like an AI thing in the coaching app where you just type in what you're trying to do, and it's all like kind of scripted, but I'll still talk to the guy and, you know, here's what I'm working on now. Here's, you know, I'm thinking 22 hours this week is kind of how much time I have. And, you know, I want to work on the next climb I'm trying to do a video on is 15 minutes long. So I want to improve my 15-minute effort instead of my 30. And we'll kind of put together workouts to, okay, if I want to do 15 minutes at 425 watts, then here's how we get that. Here's how we put it together in the last 3 weeks. Yeah, it gets nice and nerdy.
So guys, let's get into the details here. Here are your career highlights, because this is going to be exciting before I get into the training questions. You're the hill climbing world champion in 2018, the first of the Puerto Vallarta hill climb, USA hill climbing national champion in 2017, 4-time Mount Washington hill climb, over 1,000 KOMs on Strava. That's basically segments, king of the mountains. 2-time winner of the Redland Cycling Classic in 2012, and over 100 wins in the past 10 years of your cycling career. That's a stacked thing. So, like, what would be, just so we can get some understanding here, like, what would be the description of like the hill climb championship or Mount Washington? Like, what are those distances and what's the elevation and output on those things?
For Mount Washington, I'd say is kind of like a typical and one of the more known ones. That's in New Hampshire. And basically, like, you start at the bottom of the mountain and you finish at the top. So it's like really straightforward. There's a timing element to it, but mostly it's like it's a packed start, but it's none of the like the bumping and the Tour de France kind of stuff. It's just like it's the most straightforward thing on the planet.
Yeah.
So that one, it's 7 miles, I want to say, at an average of like 12%. It's super steep. So there's no tactics. I mean, there's pacing, but there's no tactics. There's no drafting. It's just like a pure power to weight contest. So most of those are some version of that. Mount Washington's probably the most famous in the US.
And is that a dog fight? Or are you basically breaking away from people pretty quickly?
Pretty much it's you go your pace. I mean, everyone I've done is different, but I know what I can do for the 50 to 55 minutes of that time. And I'm going to go and maybe like you go a little bit harder at the bottom to get some other guys to kind of try to follow you and blow up. Or the last time I won it, it was one of, I think it might've been the closest finish of all time. There was like one dude I just could not shake, and he attacked me like 2/3 of the way up. And I kind of just kept him at 10, 15 seconds and clawed him back in like the last 500 meters is where it gets to be like 25, 30% in that insane climb.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of tactics of like letting him go a little bit harder than he should have for 10 minutes so that I could kind of suck it back and sprint him. That's what it came down to. But yeah, mostly it's just, like you said, it's a math problem. It's self-control and pacing.
So let's get some stats here. What is like an average training week for somebody at your level?
I think I average like 18 to 20 hours a week. on just volume is kind of where the main way I look at it. And then it's, how much intensity are we mixing in there? So normally it's just like hitting all the climbs that in Malibu, and at a certain sub threshold, I'll probably do like max efforts intensity like twice a week, maybe 2-3 times a week. Fun group rides kind of thing, to just sort of a little competitive. It's not really like a race format, but just a bunch of dudes get together and smash each other on the weekends.
Just out of curiosity, let's just say your max heart rate is what is your max heart rate?
I could probably do 185 now.
So what are you cruising around at most of the time?
140, just like the zone 2 that I live in.
Yeah.
So I just spam the 140 zone.
That's a burner though, dude. Holding 140 beats per minute on a bike sucks.
Yeah. No, it's not comfortable. You just it's a little bit of pushing the whole time, but you can still like talk with a friend if you're riding with someone.
Fudge, man, that's a burner. Like, yeah, I can run 140 beats per minute, but if I'm doing 140 beats per minute on the bike, like going up Latigo, like I'm like, shit.
Yeah.
This burns. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the all day pace for cyclists.
And like, what's a big day for you? 6 hours, 8 hours, 4 hours?
6 is kind of my ceiling. I don't really do much more than I don't like getting up that early. I guess I still have like the pro racer mentality, and 6 was sort of like the longest race you would do all year was 6 hours. So that was kind of the biggest training rise was that. So once a week, I usually do like a 5 to 6 hour day, but I don't go more than that, not on purpose.
And out of curiosity, like, so let's just say you're saying these segments, like Mount Washington's around 50 minutes. Mm-hmm. That's 50 minutes. Like, what is the workout that you're going to do? Just give a basic one. Like, how long is that going to take? Is it like warm up for 20, 30 minutes and then do 4 by 15 minutes with 5 minutes down? Or like, what does something like that look?
Yeah, like you're pretty close. So I'll look at like the way you put it together is, say Mount Washington is 3 months out, and my target for that is to do 400 watts for the 50 minutes. So I'll break that up into 10-minute efforts. I'll do 10 minutes on, 5 minutes off at 400 watts. So like over the course of 2 hours now, I'm putting in 400 watts with rest in the middle, and then you reduce the rest, and then it'll be 2 by 25 at 400 watts with 15 minutes recovery. So you kind of like build in longer efforts and less recovery at the pace you're trying to do. I imagine it's the same with running. So it's, like I said, it's just a math problem. You kind of like graph it out in the weeks or months that you have to hit the power you want. And at some point, you can do it or you can't. But yeah, that's how it's structured. You're exactly right.
Fuck, dude. That is absolutely brutal. Like, I don't know why, like whenever, like one of the workouts I'll do if I'm not feeling great with like running at the moment, meaning like, oh, my calves are a little bit too sore for this. I'll just do 60 minutes of 5 minutes on, 5 minutes easy. And I call it the bricklayer.
Yep.
It's something very, very similar. Like, obviously you're talking about much more grandiose chunks of work and rest. But for me being a non-cyclist, when my quads take that much of a beating, and for 5 minutes, I'll hold 400 to 430 or something like that. And then all of a sudden my quads will be so filled up with lactic acid. Like the rest of the day, I walk around like a cowboy. Like, and I'm sure you've just trained that out of your system at this point and you're just used to it.
Yeah, it's just years. Yeah, it's just years. When you're running, are you doing like backbone trail, all that stuff over there?
Oh yeah. I mean, awesome. I used to be like, so like you do a lot of these things like, around here in California, like the Tour de California. For us, the gold standard for running in Southern California was the Xterra series. I don't know if you ever heard of that.
Sure.
Like so that was my thing. Like I was the guy who was the most dangerous dude in Southern California for those like Mount Baldy climbs, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. I'm relatively big for everybody, so I couldn't do the straight vertical ones. So like there were guys like you who would go against me that smoked my ass. Right. But then all of a sudden, if you got this for anywhere from like 8 to 13 miles, that was where I was dangerous. And I don't know why, but I can just throw my body downhill. And I think because of the extra strength that I have in my body, like that downward impact, because I would squat and all that kind of stuff, I just would recover a lot faster out of there. Because you
could absorb it.
Come down a hill at like 430 pace. And then when you'd hit a flat, you'd have to be right back into 5 minute pace, where these guys might be 20 to 30 seconds slower per mile in that transition.
Right.
And even to this day, like, I don't know if have you heard of High Rocks?
Sure.
Yeah. So it's obviously not the same sport at all, but it's a similar conditioning aspect. Like,
Hmm.
I specialize in those 8 to 13 milers. So it's like a 50 to 70-minute race. And it's just one of those kind of things where I took the same principles from trail racing and I just put it over here and just changed the fundamentals of the movements mostly.
Interesting.
Yeah. But it's interesting. Like, I actually fell in love with, and I started to get more obsessed with like the work that you were doing and other cyclists and the like around the world, because I thought that the formula for cycling would translate over to High Rocks as I kept on progressing. Because you
Right.
guys have a much more developed sport and you have much more data.
That's what I was about to say. It's interesting. Like you're going from from running to High Rocks, and like all of those would have really like there's no precedent for the training that would win High Rocks, right? Like you're the one coming up with it. Like I had a coach who had, decades of experience himself, and there's power data going back to the 80s from like the guys who won the tour. Like it's all pretty public what it takes to win the Tour de France, and it's 500 watts for an hour. It's like, well, I can't do that. So,
Yeah.
whereas like what you're doing, you're figuring out like, oh, this is the kind of training that might work. Like we all know, it's just whether you can do it or not.
So yeah,
I
I
think that's
started.
a fun aspect. I never had to learn how to coach.
I literally just the frontier. Like I was almost like a kind of like a Shackleton type, where I was like,
It's kind
we
of more fun.
know it's fun. It's fun.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's part of the reason why I think I've always been obsessed with athletes outside of my sport, because when you see somebody like you're like, okay, this guy is winning all of these efforts, and it's like being that you're in my area and I can see your output. I was like, what is this guy doing? Because if I can even get a percentage closer to what you're doing and still hold on to my true north, it will rising tides raise all ships kind of thing.
Yeah. No, I
And
would totally like if you drop me into a new sport, I would look at like, okay, what are the more developed sports? What are the sports with a history of data, and what do those workouts look like? And how can I adapt that? Yeah, I think that's the correct approach. But it'd be fun to like kind of play with it. Like I said, we're not guessing. Like that whole element of training, it's just like that's done in cycling. At least that was never I'm sure there's people who are figuring out new stuff, but it's all like super fringy and marginal gains kind of thing. It's not like a new territory, a new sport, people figuring out what to be good at.
we've been talking a lot about like the actual physical aspect. What about some of the things that are outside of that, like nutrition, special modalities? Like one of the curiosities, like I sleep right now in an altitude tent, and we've used altitude as like a peak version of ourselves, where I would go up to Boulder and train for 2 or 3 months, or Durango, and then come back down to races. Sometimes we just had to be in altitude because our races were at altitude.
Right.
Like, did you ever use something like that was kind of a bona fide, like a multiplier towards your training?
Absolutely. Yeah. The altitude is for sure a big thing in cycling. Like I think when you get into the super endurance-y stuff, the stage races, that kind of thing, like the hematocrit, having a high hematocrit was always big, and that's what guys were like using EPO for. So now you have to go to altitude because they're not doing EPO anymore. But I could never sleep in those tents. You don't struggle to sleep in the tent?
Dude, trust me, it sucks. I mean, it's a
Maybe the tents
game.
got better. For me, it was like it's 100 degrees in there. It's loud.
There's this company, Box Altitude. I've worked with them for the past 2 years. And so like, I've got my watch, I've got a pulse oximeter on this thing, and I'll do a second one on the finger. I get like last year I was stupid. I was dropping myself down to the 80s and trying to really stress my body. As I said, like last year was this year where I was like, let's kill ourselves. Like, let's just see what happens. And it sucks, but now I have 2 fans in there. I jump in the ice bath at nighttime and do like a pre-cool down, and I get into bed cold.
Yeah.
And like, so I have a formula now. And
Yeah,
just
okay.
like you, I'm sure, where like when you first started cycling, when you just get on the bike and ride, now you're like, I'm going to put on a little bit of chamois
Sure.
cream. I'm going to drink this instead of this. And then all of a sudden, like those percentages difference of just feeling more comfortable makes it so much easier. So
Yeah.
now I'm pretty smooth, and I did a very incremental growth rather than last year. I was like 1,500 meters, 2,000 meters, 2,500 meters, 3,000 meters. And this year I'm still at 2,100 meters 2 weeks in.
I had the altitude tent when I was 22, and it was just like It's like, how high does it go? Yeah, I'll crank it. I'll sleep at 14,000 feet. And yeah,
Yeah,
that probably didn't help a whole
same.
lot. But I remember getting hot, so I'd put the generator, like I lived in Georgia, but it would get cold at night. I put the generator outside, so it was taking air from outside from where it was 45 degrees and pumping that
Yeah.
in. So like, or I'd have like a bucket of ice that the tube would go through to cool it down before it went in. But no matter what, it just got sweaty and nasty and those things. So the altitude for sure works, but I just go to Big Bear now. Like I live in LA, it's a 2-hour drive. I have a cabin up there. So like if you figured out the protocol for the tents, like I figured out the protocol for if I go up to and I was doing this when I was racing too. Like if I go up to Big Bear for 2.5, 3 weeks, the next race I'm going to win. So I could figure out, like, I know exactly how long to go, how much to rest. And here's, I do my big week, and here's the kind of intensity I do. I know all the roads there. Some awesome trails there too, I'm sure you know about, but
Dude, I have a
I would
cabin
hit
in
that. And
Crestline.
that was kind of my training for sure.
Yeah.
Altitude works. I think probably all endurance sports, we kind of know how that goes.
Yeah. Have you ever spent time in Crestline?
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. That's like the lower point of my rides from down there.
Yeah. Dude, I got to see what you'll do up to Old Mill Climb. So there's this road, I think it's called 138 going down to Lake Silverwood. I'm sure you probably have come around, done the full circle, maybe.
Sure.
That's like my cycling out there. Like that's my metric for like, hey, who's the boss? And I'll test that like about once a month when I'm training up, leading up to something. And I'm sure like I can get up at 15 minutes. I bet you probably get up at an 11 to 12.
Funny.
And it's
I believe I've ridden that road. I'm not sure. I don't think I've smashed it. The one I always try to do is Cuffle Canyon, the one that's up from Arrowhead. But there's a bunch of really nice climbs over there. Keller Peak is super cool. But the ones I do are because I come down from Big Bear, so Crestline, you're already like 3 hours in.
Yeah.
But like there's some really nice roads around there and super hard stuff when you get higher.
I personally am trying to. There's 2 races that I want to do. I want to set them up. Like eventually when I retire, I would like become a race director. Like I already do it for one event and I want to start doing it locally. There's the 18 that comes from San Bernardino up to like that would be solid. If you could shut down that road, it's long enough that it'd be a solid fight with a bunch of cyclists. And that other one would be the other side. It would be like a 2-day race. One would be a sprint and the other one would be a long one. You'd probably start or finish on the sprint, but they're 2 great canyons for cycling that need a little more street cred.
Yeah, there's some long, like 3-hour grinds to get to the highest points, like Onyx Pass, the other side of Big Bear, and then Tour Cali has raced the desert way. That's up the 38 from like the Palm Springs side.
Yeah,
and we've gone down it too, which was miserable. It's like just dumping down in the desert where it's 120 degrees to finish.
Yeah. That's insane.
Yeah, there's some cool events like that you could do, like you have to do coastal areas, but like the sea to ski kind of stuff. Are you familiar with those?
I've heard of them. Yeah.
Yeah. There's one, Bellingham, Washington is the one that I don't know if it's the most famous, but I've heard of it. It's like you start in the snow at the top and then you go all the way down to the coast and they have like 9 different sports. So like you're skiing the first bit and then you're running down the hairpins and then you're riding your bike down the flat and then you're paddling in the thing. Like our area is a place where you could do that. You could ride from the coast to snow in one day. There's not a lot of places you can do that on the planet. So I'm putting that in your pin for race director if you can figure out how to close all those roads.
Done.
From
I'll be the guy.
From Zuma Beach to the top of Baldy. Let's go.
Why are there no bike races in Malibu?
It's so hard. I put on an event there. I have like my cookie themed event in October. It's so expensive. Like it's really the what you're asking about Malibu applies to the whole US. Like they just make you all the permits, all the police, all the road closures, all the legal stuff. Whereas like if you want to in France, they'll go to like a small village and be like, hey, we're thinking of the Tour de France riding through your town. That town is like, oh, where can I write the $2 million check to help make that happen? And we'll close the roads for you. And the US and Malibu, it's like the exact opposite. Like, oh, you want to close our roads? Like it's $40,000 for the minimum police closures. And it's just cycling isn't cool here is the reason.
Yeah.
They're
shutting down, I think, the Malibu Tri
beach community.
Yeah. They're shutting down the Malibu Tri because I think there's like some kind of amoeba in the river that they need to protect.
That makes sense. Yeah. There's a lot of, I'm just seeing like dead whales are plopping up on the coast. It's bad times right now with the water quality over there. I wouldn't want to be a surfer today.
Yeah, dude, that sucks. Out of curiosity, what I want to get into nutrition next, but I have this in the notes. Like, who's the fittest person you've ever met in cycling and in entirety? I always
I
find
saw
this
your
curious.
note. That's a fun question. Like everyone I know is a cyclist, so that's kind of a tricky one. But like, there's I guess the two that come to mind. I'm good friends with Gwen Jorgensen, and her husband Pat was a teammate of mine, but she was
Yeah, yeah,
gold medal ITU in 2016 triathlon.
yeah.
Um,
Shoot, try to get into marathoning.
yes,
Yep.
yeah, she went marathon, and now she's kind of back triathlon, but just like I just know her super well, and like I was a world class, like I was racing in Europe in the World Tour at the time, and I hung out with her. I was like, oh man, she's different from like I had teammates who were winning classics and stuff, and I was like, Jesus, like, and then she won a gold medal that year.
Yeah.
The other one is this guy Mike Woods, we were teammates a few years as well. He's still racing. He's my age, so that's kind of what a freak he is. But he was a miler. He was like a sub 4 minute miler at 17, and was
Wow.
like he's Canadian, so he was like
It's always the
national level and
Canadians.
all that stuff. And then had some injuries, like had a couple years off, found cycling super late, and then just like rocketed through the sport of cycling at starting at like 25 and shot up to the World Tour. And like so he won a Tour de France stage last year, the year before, I forget. Yeah, it was 2 years ago. But like he's one of the best cyclists in the world, and he can also like during the Tour de France, he's going for runs in like just between stages, just like it's just different. It's like if I run, I'm sore for 4 days. Like I can run, but I'm definitely not going to like perform on the bike the next day. But he's like one of the better athletes, I'd say, to like ever throw his leg over a bicycle.
That's
That's the guy
awesome.
you haven't heard of. I mean, he's super high level, but
Ryan Atkins would be my comparable guy to that. Look him up
yeah,
sometimes.
totally. I know him.
Yeah, dude. I'm
Yeah.
telling you right now, like Wolverine would be fucked in a fight against Ryan Atkins. Like
I
just
believe it. Yeah.
unstoppable, unbreakable. You put him on a bike, he's got watts. You put him on in shoes, he can hit miles. You put weight on him, he just does it. And
Yeah.
he just seemed like every single time we did something, he's just like, what next? And like a lot of us would be like, it's over. He's like, what next? And I used to go against him in like multiple stage day events,
Mhm.
and I'd get him by a point, and I'm like, dude, he's got to be broken. Then they'd beat me the next two events, and then I'd get him again, and like I'm like, dude, there's no way he's gonna do this thing. He can't. It's not in his wheelhouse. Again,
Yeah. I think the real best athletes are the ones who like are good at multiple. So like the best athletes wouldn't be professional cyclists, right? Like you're going to get the best cyclists
yeah,
in a bike race, but the best athletes would be like 80% in the cycling thing, but they can also run, and they can also like do a damn chin up.
yeah.
It's a whole other ball game.
I'm hoping to publish a book one of these days, just like a toilet seat book, like
Mhm.
fittest people on earth, and like have like from you your interview, and just be like, hey, I met this one guy, and it just writes about him and some of the accolades, like the fittest people you may have never heard of. And
Right.
I
Yeah.
just think
Yeah.
it'd
I
be
think that's totally valid. I think that's a whole other thing. That's like as I get older, I think about that. I'm like, okay, I want to perform at a high level as a bike racer because that's what I do. But I also like I want to have bone density. I don't want to be like, it'd be good to one day look good with my shirt off. The ship might have sailed on that. But
no, we can get you
you
there,
know,
babe.
like being able to do the other sports and just like be a fit person versus being a fast cyclist is like a different distinction that you think about when you get older.
My biggest tip to you, dude, is get a weight vest.
Yeah, okay. No, you and I are going to train together in the fall. Like I'm whatever that is. I'm going to see if I can hang on to whatever the heck you're doing. Like I'll take you up Latigo and I'll drop you in one sport, and then you can beat me up in 100 other ways. It'd be great.
Dude, you'll drop me after, that first surge up Latigo, and then it does a little dip and then goes up again. You will drop me
Yeah.
by that first dip. You'll drop
Sure.
me.
Yeah. And then we'll go for a run, and I'll kiss you goodbye. Yeah.
Ta-ta for now. Okay, like obviously this is a great an obvious question. Let's hear about your nutrition. Like you mentioned, like, oh my gosh, like we're eating carbs now. Like I guess cycling is kind of synonymous with starvation, and it's I guess, was built up that way because everybody just talks about FTP, and it's very, very quickly calculated into FTP is your output versus your weight. And the fastest way to do that, I guess, would be cheat the weight rather than do the work to put the output up. What was your nutrition like during, I guess, your start as like just a young bro cyclist to now where you're still taking on some of the hardest rides in the world and setting records in your 30s?
Yeah, I guess it's a good thing. I kind of got to the weight. Like I mentioned I was a chubby kid and I started riding bikes to lose weight. I wasn't racing then. So like when I started riding bikes, I was 148 pounds and 6'1" in college. And so I never had to lose weight as a racer. Because honestly, like when you're depriving yourself, it just doesn't work. Like you're not gonna get stronger and lose weight at the same time.
Yeah.
So thankfully, like that's why I just always say like don't do that. Just like try to, and especially like when you're at a certain age, if you're still improving on the bike, like if you're gaining watts, like that's precious. That's so hard to do. And so now I'm on the other end. Now I'm, no matter what I do, I'm getting older. I'm losing a couple watts every year. Like now is when the part where like, okay, if I'm going to improve my power to weight, the only way to do that is to lose weight. Which, I'm not doing that either. I'm just going to, like, I don't want to lose any more than I have. But yeah, when you look at that equation, it's tough. But I always say like focus on the gaining power part, and then it'd be kind of a different part of the cycle. I do like maybe 3 weeks when you're doing your build is when you just got to fuel it. So I'm for racing, like you're eating the carbs before the ride, eating the carbs after the ride. And like, maybe if you're trying to be careful about it, you stick to vegetables and protein for dinner. But if you're not eating before and during and after, you're just going to make yourself slower. So it's really like, and especially now that they're kind of the carb revolution, whatever's happened in pro racing, they're training their bodies to consume and absorb and just hit the sugar like all day. That's the new move for sure.
Did you weigh stuff? Did you measure stuff? Or did you have a nutrition coach? Or are you just like, I know myself?
Yeah, I went through like all that. You have a coach for a while and then you learn it. I worked with a nutritionist, Dr. Phil Gaimon in Santa Monica for a couple of years. And he definitely helped me like learn about timing of it. So like, you want to hit the carbs before and during and after. And then, you want to have a big meal at dinner that's protein and fat heavy, and that'll help you sleep. So I definitely learned a lot from each person, and kind of like took that with me. But now it's kind of just, I guess it's by feel. I've been doing it years enough, but it's eating as much as you can and staying fueled and staying on top of it. And just like not eating junk, I guess, is the big thing. But I'm so many years, like I just, I live around the corner from a Wendy's. I'm like, who's eating that? Like, it's just like the lifestyle of being healthy and fit and like eating good stuff, which I think takes a while, but that's so much of it for most people.
I personally ate so much McDonald's in my life. And I know I'm not trying to, like, all of us have our own like keys that unlock doors.
Yep.
Mine has been calories, like consistent and smart calories. Like I don't eat McDonald's every single day, every single meal. But I remember the other day we went to the Grand Prix to go watch a friend of ours racing. And I was like, we're coming back up and I know I have a workout coming. I was like, I'm going to get a double quarter pounder with cheese to put it in rather than potentially miss it. And
yeah, it's better than not fueling. Yeah.
Yeah. I love it though. I own a supplement company and I'm like obsessed with supplements. Like I've always just been like, I think about percentages, and like for me in my race, 1% is 32 seconds. Like were there things in your world that you were like, I take beta alanine, sodium bicarbonates, or anything like that, where you're like, these are some of my most like critical things I have to have on my routine?
Yeah, I did all that. I'm sponsored by the same like supplement company for many years now. I won't plug them because you have one, but
No, dude. Like I'm not like that.
That's First Endurance. They've been around forever, so they do like the electrolytes, and they have for racing. It was always more about like health, and that's where supplements come first, right? It's just like being healthy and not getting sick was always kind of the key. So like, if you get sick, it's just like goodbye to the 50 watts that you've just trained for the next week and a half.
Yeah.
So it was all about like just having like the right multivitamin and staying on top of your, you know, your immune system. Like it's just such a drag to do the multi-day events and you're traveling around. So it was that stuff, but I wouldn't say there's like one specific thing that like, you know, that was an unlock or a game changer. It was just kind of doing everything. But the multivitamin, I do the beta alanine. We've done the bicarb you're talking about. That was definitely a thing at races.
Yeah.
Trying to think what else. These days it's like ketones are kind of the newer frontier that I've been experimenting with a little bit. And that's definitely super interesting, but nothing supplements like just years
Yeah.
and doing those brutal workouts, right?
Nothing's going to bypass hard work and consistency.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I tell everybody that, like, there's a pre-workout and then going into the gym is not going to all of a sudden grow the muscles. It's the pre-workout and going to the gym for 8 to 12 weeks straight. And then all of a sudden you see an extra little bump, an extra little cut, an extra little, like, you know, weight on the bar. Yeah. But I agree. Like, I mean, as I said, supplements should be a multiplier. It's going to be a 0.1% multiplier to a point, like a 5% multiplier. But for me, like I always tell people, like my motto is don't be lazy. It's not taking more supplements. It's don't be lazy. Like that's your only thing every single time you show up. It's consistency and I guess the willpower to attack where you don't want to.
Right. It's for me, like the supplement is like to make sure you're not missing something. It's not to like get extra of something. It's just like to make sure there's something in your blood test that's not low, that's not going to like set you back, that's not going to make you sick or hold you back. It's just to make sure you're on all the levels and you're able to like perform at your best.
Out of curiosity, did you ever have like a nemesis? Like somebody you just knew that was going to be in the tour. You're like, dude, I gotta get him.
Yeah, it's so many. It's like when I was first coming up, it was the kind of the doping thing in Europe was coming to a head, and there'd be like dudes who get caught, and you know none of the European teams want to touch them, so they come over to the U.S. They get on some shitty team over here and just beat the crap out of us for years and years, and it was just like, man, that guy has 10 EPO filled Grand Tours under his belt, and I'm 24 and eating McDonald's.
Yeah.
and it like so the coming up, it was this guy Francisco Mancebo was like the guy that I just had to figure out how to beat in North America at the biggest races here. And the big one, like big picture, it was just like Lance Armstrong, just the level that he took the sport to, and then what he crashed it to, and then just still being a dick about it to this day. Just like symbolically what he was and represented was just like such an easy villain for kind of anyone with a brain in cycling was just like, that fucking guy. And his whole shtick. So yeah, that'd be the easy nemesis.
Yeah. I guess it's got to be difficult for somebody on the outside. Like I never had to compete against it. I've competed against people who've been taught before. I never had to compete against Lance. I appreciate his hard work. That like anyone can admire. Anyone can admire. Like we were watching the 30 for 30 on him the other day. Now we're watching The Last Dance about Michael Jordan. Like you can see across the board, these high level performers, there is 100% this gear that there are all in mentally. Like even like you could 100% give Lance Armstrong a basketball and Jordan a bike, and they would be the same people in their new different worlds.
Like, because they would because Michael Jordan would crash you to win the Tour de France because he's insane, right? Yep. And Lance Armstrong would like stab you as he's going up for a dunk. That's like that kind of person is just like so yes, they perform if we admire like winning over everything, but it's also like it's outside of the sport now. Like now you're just kind of a nutcase.
Yeah.
And it's it's which that's what America rewards in a lot of ways, but you're not good at the sport anymore. You're just cheating. You're just a criminal who happens to have used this sport to make your money. That's kind of how I see it. I see those guys as like there's pro athletes and there's competitors. There's guys. There's hundreds of guys who work just that hard.
Yeah.
But they're not like the mafia criminal enterprise, like carrying blood bags around and paying people to not talk about it and like threatening people's wives and their kids if their husband talks. It's like that's what we're talking about with the doper kind of stuff, and it gets like pretty terrifying pretty quick.
Yeah, that's far beyond the needle.
It's just like not. Yeah, it's a whole other thing.
I guess because all of us here always want to just know, like, I guess my answer to this would be maybe a kettlebell and a pull-up bar. But if you had to pick one or two tools or a bike that you would say is like, this is the thing I would use above all other things if I could go back through the span of my career, is there something you're like, man, it was the bike trainer, it was this one bike, it was this one kind of hill, it was the power meter? There's there something that was like fundamental to your career that was like it's it, this is the thing.
Interesting. I would say it's just like it's like a long, steady climb that you can just like do your work on. Like when I grew up in Atlanta, it's just like there weren't hills like that. And now it's just like I pretty much live on Payuma, which is just like it's 30 minutes for me to get there. And I can do whatever. It's a gradient. Like I can go as hard as I want, I can go as easy as I want, and I can just like look at my power meter and get it right. And I would say like when I went to the next level in pro cycling, it was like I just did a winter in Tucson that year, and I was just like I lived on Mount Lemmon, and there's a lot of those in different parts of the country all over the world. But just like here's the power I need to do, here's the work I need to do, and here's where I'm going to go and do it. And like the route isn't pretty, the ride's not pretty, but like I'm going to go there and it's an office.
Do you hold the record on Mount Lemmon?
Say it again.
Do you hold the record on Lemmon?
I did. No, Lionel Sanders, triathlete, has that. Speaking of like athlete,
really?
Yeah.
Wow. I would not picture him being able to outwork you on that. Not like him specifically, but you because of your craft. Like,
yeah, I think if I live there, like, because a lot of climbs too, as you know, it's like there's conditions and there's weather stuff like that. Like, I think because he lives there, he could probably get a day that's better conditions. If I was there long enough, I'd find the right day. Eventually, he's going to get it because he's doing that climb all the time. But that dude's also just like a beast.
Yeah, dude. Did you see him in Oceanside just recently?
Say it again. Yeah. No, he can. I've trained with him. I did a video with him a couple of years ago, and it's just like he's one of those in the just like his brain's different. And he can outswim you, and he can outride like I'd say a lot of the pro cyclists. I did like a cycling workout with him. And like he's on his TT bike, and he told me the numbers. I forget if it was like, I think it was like 410 for 10 minutes with 6 minutes recovery. I remember he told me the workout he was planning, and I was like, "Sure, buddy." And I didn't think he could do it. It's just like that's the power meter. I was like, all right, yeah, let's go and do that. And I just watched him like, oh, okay, you're doing that. I just watched him nail it. Yeah.
Yeah, man, you got to have that mindset if you want to reach for it. Well, dude, we just logged an hour and it flew by. Like I had an absolute blast. And, what do you got coming up next? What's the next thing that we can log into just to kind of track what you're doing?
Same dude. Yeah, it's the Phil wins the Tour de France series is what I'm working on now. I have a gravel event that I'm doing that I put on in Lone Pine. That's next weekend. But after that, it's all systems go on just training for those Tour de France climbs to see what times I can do. And just make some fun videos out there. Yeah, that'll be neat.
Tell us about what you got coming up in October. I'm not going to be able to make it, but I want to support and make sure people might hear about it.
Yeah, we're gonna go right past your house. Phil's Cookie Fondo in Malibu. It'll be year 9. Yeah. So it's not competitive. It's kind of like it's called a Grand Fondo. That's kind of the category of bike ride. So you start and we have aid stations like every 45 minutes, something like that. So you stop and my thing is cookies. I'm a big fan of chocolate chip cookies. So you have at McDonald's and I have my cookies. And that was my thing when I was a pro and people would bring them to me. So now my move is like I give the cookies back to the people. So I have this event every few miles. We have the aid stations and it's just like a fun, it's what I want cycling to be. It's social, it's enjoying the views, it's health, it's fitness. And I kind of just do a whole weekend of that in Malibu. And last year was 1,200 people. And we all just have a good time riding our bikes together in these beautiful hills.
Dude, well, anybody who's in the Southern California area, even if you're not, you should go check it out. Have you ever done Iron Horse, by the way?
No, but I'm familiar with it. Yeah, that'd be cool.
You would crush.
Yeah.
You would crush.
Yeah,
anybody you want to give a shout out? Anything you're trying to kind of push?
I did my stuff. Yeah, no, this is fun, man. Well, you and I'll have to get together in the real world.
Yeah,
it's we're both busy. It's been especially this year's been so bad. Like started with the fires, and I've just like been behind on all of it. But in the fall, I'll be caught up.
Have you been able to ride over the hills and go into like Topanga and stuff, or is it all shut down? Because you could come over to stunt.
PCH is closed from the city, but Topanga you can get to from the valley. For like there was a week where they let the cyclists on PCH and they stopped that. So I've seen it. It's terrible. It's like you see it on TV and then like seeing it in the real world. I mean, you've been on Latigo long enough. I guess you would have lived through Woolsey.
Yeah. I mean,
so yeah, you're familiar. It's just it's awful. It's a real bummer.
Yeah. Well, we'll get it back soon, dude. Well, I really appreciate your time, man. It was such a blast hanging out with you guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. You know where to find us. Check us out at Builder Sports or House Training if you want to connect with anything we're doing. And brother, such a pleasure connecting with you, man. We have to have you up to the ranch. We're going to put you through a High Rocks workout or just a bad boy workout, and we'll see how you handle it.
100%. We'll do it.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks, buddy. See ya.